Akash, is it done?
It's processed now. It's done, ma'am.
Okay. So, hello and welcome to today's webinar on building high performance teams, the leadership challenge. I hope you all are safe and healthy. I am Dr. Smaraki Patnaik, Assistant Professor, ASBM University, and I'll be your moderator for the session. First of all, I would request all the participants to please keep their audio and video off because we sometimes face a lot of issues and echo. So please keep your audio and video off. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce you to the eminent speakers for this session. First, we have with us Mr. Ajay Kumar Sahu, who works as Executive Director, Group Corporate HR in RP Sanjeev Goenka Group, a large business conglomerate headquartered at Kolkata. He has been associated with the group since 2010. He drives the strategic HR interventions encompassing about 20 group companies, leadership hiring, talent management, leadership development, etc. Prior to RPSG Group, he worked in Tata Steel for about 3 years as Chief HR in Jamshedpur, and before Tata Steel, he was Group HR Head of RMZ Corporation, a Bangalore headquartered leading real estate group. We welcome you, sir, to today's session. Next, we have with us today Dr. Surya Prakash Pati, currently who serves as an associate professor in the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. He has a master's in chemistry from the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. After working for a brief period in Origin Discovery Technologies Limited as a scientist, he proceeded to IIM Lucknow for his doctorate in human resource management. Professor Pati is committed to make workplaces happier and productive. This philosophy drives his research, teaching, training, and consulting assignments. During his spare time, he is either sourcing timeless advice from Upanishads for modern management problems or on the road discovering unexplored places. We welcome you, Professor Pati. We also have with us today Mr. Sanjeev Samal. He is an MBA in HR and Marketing from Andhra University and further is a PGC HRM from XLRI Jamshedpur. He has robust leadership expertise of 15 plus years with a proficiency in the gamut of HR management, recruitment, training and development, employee relationship management, etc. His specialties include administration, personnel matters, project coordination, strong interpersonal skills, etc. He has also worked with organizations like JK Paper Limited. He is currently the HR VP at Zydus Group. We welcome you, sir. We are really very fortunate and elated to have with us such eminent speakers today. I again welcome all of you. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. I've already requested all the participants to please keep their audio and video off. Further, if any participant has any questions throughout the session, they can just put forward, through the chat box, and I will bring them up to the panel members once all the panel members have discussed. Thank you. The value of a high-performing team has long been recognized. It's why savvy startups often value the quality of team and the interaction of the founding members more than the idea itself. It's why 90% of investors think the quality of management team is the single most important non-financial factor while evaluating an IPO. And it's why there is a 1.9 times increased likelihood of having above median financial performance when the top team is what vision. I request all the participants to please keep their audio off. There's a lot of disturbance. I am again requesting all the participants to please keep their audio off. Thank you. Now, no matter how brilliant your strategy is, if the top team is working towards a common vision, it only works, right? Otherwise, if you're playing a solo game, you'd always lose out to a team. It is the way Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn co-founder, sums it up. The basketball legend also, Michael Jordan, slams dunks the same point. Talent wins the game, but teamwork and intelligence wins the championship, he says. High-performance teams comprises of a group of people having complementary skills which are aligned with the objective of fulfilling a common purpose by following a collaborative approach and also, to a large extent, encouraging an environment of innovation. There are several studies and research on the connection between the leadership and the success or failure of a high performance team, which reveals that the quality of leadership will make the ultimate difference. Gallup's research finding in 2015 also extends its support that around 70% of the variance in the scores of employee engagement will depend upon the role played by the leadership in setting the direction, providing the right culture, and motivation to the employees. Further, working in teams is often considered contrary to the American culture. Marvin Wisbord, author and organizational development expert, he also explains that teamwork is a quintessential contradiction of a society which is grounded in individual development. Yet, building and leading an organizational culture around a successful team concept is considered a critical leadership competency. The challenges are that in any team environment, people must work closely together to achieve the results. They must work efficiently and effectively across the organization to accomplish the tasks and objectives quickly enough to remain competitive. Considering this as a brief background set on the topic, I would like to request our first panel member, Mr. Ajay Sahu, to share his views on the topic. Sir, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patnaik, and good afternoon, everyone. My co-panelists, and Mr. Samal, all the participants present here. Today, the topic which is there for discussion is building high-performance teams, leadership challenges. I feel this is one of the most critical focus areas for almost all the companies worldwide. And I mean, it's a very critical aspect for effectiveness of any organization. So I would like to share my perspective purely based on my own experience for having worked for 3 decades in people management processes, managing teams as well as managing the performance processes. So I would like to structure it in 3 parts. One is just a little bit of understanding, my own understanding about what is a high performing team. Secondly, what are the leadership challenges currently, and what are some of the aspects or areas to be looked into for building a high performance team in any organization based on my own experience. So the first one, if we talk about, Dr. Patnaik touched upon the definition of a high performance team. Typically, it's a group of people who are working for a common objective of an organization, and each member in the team has a specific role. They come with specific skill set, and they come with specific talent, and they are all aligned together, and they are committed to achievement of the objectives of any organization. So a high performance team basically shows a high level of collaboration, and they are highly innovative in terms of doing things differently, coming up with new ideas. And they always tend to give superior quality of output. Their results are very qualitative. And the most important part is a high performance team is almost without any conflict. I mean, there is no conflict in a high performance team. Everybody works for a common goal. So this is my simple understanding of what is a high performance team. Now, in today's context, if we look at what are the challenges the leadership particularly faces in managing a team, some of the points which comes to my mind is the biggest challenge is the alignment of all the members with the organizational goals. Typically, what happens is the broad organizational goals are very clear to the senior management people who are in the helm of affairs, but it doesn't get percolated down till the last level of the organization. So there is a tendency of a misalignment of the team with the larger organizational goal, which creates a problem for the team to perform. The second key point, the leaders, they face challenges in managing the team because today, if we look at the context, we have in any organization, we have people working from different generations, people from generation X, Y, Z, or millennial. It's a combination of all the generations put together. So the expectation of each generation managing the expectation of each generation becomes a key challenge, and the leader has to know how to handle that. The expectation of a millennial will be extremely different, very different from that of a Generation Y employee. So that is one thing which creates challenge for the leadership to handle. The third one is the communication. I mean, if there is always a one-way communication that leads to the the next point is, if the organizations have the right kind of performance management process, then the process takes care of the team achievement altogether. The next point would be the engagement and motivation of people, because when you are working either individually or as a team, your individual motivation and the team motivation becomes extremely important. And the last but very important challenge which normally we tend to see is the leadership DNA. I mean, in any organization, you'll find leaders who are with very different DNA. So, for example, a leader could be very innovative, somebody may be very agile, someone will be a very good networker, someone will be technically very strong, a leader could be like a coach, the leader could be like a networker. So different leadership archetypes or different leadership DNAs create different kinds of teams. So the organization has to identify which are the key drivers in terms of the leadership archetypes or leadership DNA which they want to have. And if they build the team around that, then the challenges become very, very less. So having said that, I mean, I would like to share some of my own experience in terms of what makes a very high performance team in any organization. The first point is the vision and the mission of the company or the organization has to be shared with all the stakeholders in a clear manner, so that the entire team works toward achievement of the shared vision of the organization. Like if the leader understands what is the vision of the company, but the team members do not understand, then there will be a misalignment. So the shared vision of the company's goals, objectives, vision, mission becomes very critical if you want to build a very good team. The second point is effective allocation of responsibilities and accountabilities to the team members. If each team member in a group has the right kind of responsibilities clearly outlined, and what are the accountabilities which come with those responsibilities, then you can work as an effective team. The third one is there has to be a clear identification of which are the key drivers for success of any organization. See, for example, if you are in a startup organization, the key driver will be very different. If you are part of a manufacturing setup which is very well set in terms of processes and systems, the key drivers for success of that organization will be very different. So it will be very important for any organization to identify which are the key drivers and align every team member with that. The next important point is the culture and values of your organization, because the most important success factor for any organization to succeed is to know what are their core DNA of the organization, what are the culture, what are the values, and you need to have all the team members aligned with the core values and the culture of the organization, so that there is less chance of any kind of faltering or any kind of disruption. The other point which I also spoke about earlier is having a open communication system, whether it is formal, informal communication. Different channels of communication have to be kept open, and there has to be a transparency in communication, which really helps in terms of everybody sharing their own thoughts. If somebody doesn't like something, should have the liberty to express that thought. The next point is about empowerment of employees. I mean, if you empower people to think freely, take their own decision, even if they fail sometimes, even if out of 10 times they fail twice or thrice, if they do well 4 or 5 times, that is good enough for any organization to succeed. The next point, if you want to build a high performance team, you have to clearly set your focus on what matters for the organization. So identify which are the areas which are wasteful for the organization, and focus on the areas which will really add value to the effectiveness of organization. Another very important point which I have seen is that organizations where organizational politics are less, they do well in terms of their working as a team. Organization where there are lot of politics, or there are many groups working differently in silos, then it creates a real challenge for the organization to work as a team. The next important point is having a very clear competency framework for developing people. I mean, any good organization which really does well, they have a very strong competency framework which actually binds people to work together. They know what are expected of them, and they know what they should do, what they should not do. When I talk about competency framework, it includes both the functional competency framework, behavioral competencies, then people are aligned with each other very well. And the last point on this is you should have the team building processes very well set. Any organization which has a good team building processes from time to time, that brings about a lot of bonding among the team members, and everybody feels happy, and they give their best to the organization. Last closing point, if you want to build a high performance team, it is about having the right kind of people. So you have to hire the right kind of people, you have to nurture them, and you will have to retain them. These three things become very important. And typically, most of the companies, they commit mistake sometimes that they always try to hire somebody with very high functional abilities, but they forget the generic or the behavioral aspects of the individual. So I personally always believe that it is better to have a team member who will be well accepted by the culture of your organization, rather than having somebody who will be rejected by the culture of your organization. So that becomes a very critical point. So if you want to have the right team, you have to hire the right kind of people, nurture them properly, and retain them properly. Then only you can build a high performance team, and you can retain them. This is all from my side. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for giving us an industry-specific practitioner's perspective regarding high-performance team, the leadership challenges, as well as the areas that needs to be considered while creating and sustaining a high-performance team. Thank you very much, sir. Now, moving forward, I would now request Professor Pati to please share his perspectives on the topic. Professor Pati, please.
So thank you, Dr. Patnaik and Mr. Samal and Mr. Sahu. It is a pleasure to be actually associated with all of you in this very important seminar on leadership and the method to build high performance teams. Let me tell you, I was enamored by you, Mr. Sahu, and you have touched most of the top points which are very, very important, beginning with leadership, beginning with your communication, beginning with transparency, empowerment. And I really liked your point about the last part, that is person organizational fit, that is cultural fit. Just to follow your example, sir, I have also structured my presentation, but my structure is little more on a presentation, on a PPT, because I'm a teacher after all, and teachers have a way of telling things. So I just request your indulgence, all of yours, that you can just try to have this particular slide, and I promise you it won't be boring, but it can definitely going to give you some image about the things that I'll be talking about. So like Mr. Sahu spoke from his experience, I'll be talking more about from a pictorial perspective based on my research on those wonderful people who have shaped up this Indian industry and the Indian industrial society. So not everybody's name can be taken, but definitely we will try to touch as many people as possible. So I hope all of you can see this picture. This is the picture of Taj Coral Reef in Maldives. So it looks beautiful, isn't it? But on December 26th, 2004, this particular island or this particular hotel, by the way, this is a hotel, was under the waves, underwater. And I'm talking about the tsunami. But surprisingly, the people there, you'll be amazed about the way these employees actually behaved, all these people. And I just want to read about this from a beautiful paper in Harvard Business Review that celebrated these employees. And the paper's name is The Ordinary Heroes of the Taj. And let me just allow me to just read this. As soon as the giant waves struck, I want all of you to keep on looking at the picture as I'm reading this, and you'll understand when I'm talking about giant waves, how giant the waves can actually be. As soon as the giant wave struck, guests say Taj Group employees rushed to every room and escorted them to high ground. Women and children were sheltered in the island's only two-story building. Many guests were panic-stricken, believing that more waves could follow, but staff members remained calm and optimistic. No more waves arrived, but the first one had inundated the kitchens and storerooms. A Taj Group team, led by the head chef, immediately set about salvaging food supplies, carrying cooking equipments to high ground, and preparing a hot meal. Housekeeping staff retrieved furniture from the lagoon, pumped water out of the restaurant, and restored a semblance of normalcy. Despite the trying circumstances, the lunch was served by 1 p.m. Can you believe it? This particular island was under water. All the employees who are working there also would have family members who would have also suffered. And most of the people also come from India. But all they were worried about is serving that customer who is there. And lunch was still served by 1 p.m. The normal lunch hour is 1 p.m. On the day of a disaster also, the lunch hour is 1 p.m. If this is not an example of a high-performing team, what can be? Now, this also gets repeated in in the December, November, of 2008, when Taj Mahal Palace Hotel was attacked. And there also, you'll be amazed, these people didn't move away. They stayed on in that hotel and ensured that as many guests as possible were saved. Even the hotel's general manager, Karambir Singh Kang, he became a celebrity after that. His becoming a celebrity is not what he wanted, because on that very fire, that very tragedy, that very bomb, the attack on Bombay, he lost his wife and 2 children on the 6th floor of the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, while he all the time knowing that, and while he ensured that the hotel guests are put in safety. So, Mr. Srinivas, who was the Senior Vice President HRM of the India Hotel Company Limited, that actually runs Taj Mahal Palace Hotel and other Taj properties, was asked, why do your employees behave this way? I mean, it's a normal behavior to run in the streets, talk to the government, shout at the government, blame Ratan Tata, blame everyone in the earth, blame God. How can you bring about this? Why do the employees behave such a way? While the tragedy is striking, they were only bothered about the customers. He says, the reason why people created those human chain and essentially put themselves in between the terrorists and the guest was that they considered the hotel as their home. You cannot come to my home and you cannot harm my guest because they are my family. It was a direct manifestation of the Indian work ethos that guest is God. Right? So what is the one thing you have to learn? The leadership challenge is not to give people a target. The leadership challenge is to make that target visible. Give a face to the target and essentially define your customer. Typically, when we say customer, all that comes to our mind is the product. Essentially, we have to understand who is the user of the product. It is about not what to do, but who to do for. It's not numbers, but persons. And just what Steve Jobs actually used to say, you have to manufacture delight and not necessarily create or build products. That's the difference between manufacturing delight and creating product. It's about experiencing the entire thing, the entire product through all the senses. And that is what Jobs was after, about that person and not necessarily the experience. If you define the person well, the experience is not very far away. That is the first thing. Define the customer. Who is the customer? It is not about a segment that we have on our this. It is about the face I'm talking about. Who is that face who is going to use our product? If you can have that, maybe you will have a motive. You will give a meaning to the people. One of the ways to do that is the Friday pros and cons meeting about how they have proceeded and how this can be useful, your product or service. The second one is from one of my students who has a company and here in Cochin, and I'm actually writing a case there about this in this company. It's called Paradise Holidays. This guy is actually is a travel company out of Kerala, a small company, not like your Tata example that I gave, not even by RPG Group, sir, that you come from. It is absolutely small company. It has a very niche clientele, and the COVID has struck. I'm sure all of us are aware how COVID has damaged all of our businesses, and many people have lost their jobs, right? But imagine what Ratish, a student and also the owner of my company, or of this particular company, what did he do? Just I want to show the letter, which I've also happened to share also in the LinkedIn platform, but just allow me to quickly show you that letter. And the letter reads something like this. I hope you can read this. My dearest all, a very good morning and hope all of you and your family are safe and in good health. I know this is one of the difficult times in life, and remember, this is just one of them which you will have to pass through in this life. I'm so happy to see most of you actively engaged in the WhatsApp group, which makes our day. Those who are not active, please be participative and engage yourself during this time. Socializing while social distancing is the only way we can get rid of our hurdles during times like this. Considering the current situation, we are not sure when we can resume work and start receiving guests like what we used to do, at least for our survival. But one thing is sure, if you're prepared and manage this time well, we'll be able to bounce back and far better than how we are. We need to utilize May efficiently and blah, blah, blah. For the month of May, you'll be asked to do an online course. The details of which Sri will be forwarding. This will be a clarification course which will require you, certification course, sorry, which will require you to go through the study material, attend online exams, pass the exam, get a certificate. The courses will be selected considering your job profile. The company will be reimbursing the course fee, which is less than ₹500 plus some numbers, depends on your salary, which will be informed to you. To those of you who pass the course and get a certificate, please note that reimbursement of course fee and stipend will be given only to those who take the course, prepare and submit notes, pass the exam, and produce a certificate. During this time, I would even suggest you to have a Netflix account, which is free for 30 days. Even 4 of you can share an account, which can cost you ₹200 per head, and start watching English movies. This will improve your English communication skills. Little matter how you manage good times, but your abilities lie in how you utilize bad times. Remember this and have a learning month ahead. Sri will be the coordinator for the course, and please get in touch with her for necessary certifications. We will be forming WhatsApp groups for those who attend some courses and can have a discussion of what we learn every day. This is Ratish, an owner of a small company who is trying to ensure that his employees are upskilled and reskilled when the industry opens up. And what they did is, now all of these employees, including the drivers of Kerala who were working with him, are talking in fantabulous English. Not the way we are speaking, but enough to wow a North Indian crowd and take them around once they land up in Kerala. That is what they do. So point is, please, we need to understand that there are methods by which leaders can sort of build these teams. And what they did is they give an incentive. These people actually ended up giving an incentive. And the incentive is learning and recognition. How to achieve this? Ask staff to come up with a learning plan. You don't decide. Here, Ratish decided, but you can ask. You can do an informal employee of the month within the team. Not everything needs to be recognized by HR. Even a pat from your back, if you're a leader, is good enough. Give gift vouchers. They're not very costly. 500 rupees is an example here. It's not very costly. The leadership challenge free. JRD, I'm sure all of us know about him, but the man this side is Mr. D.R. Pense. He was the chief economist, later after JRD's tenure. But when Pense joined Tata Group in 1970s as a young economist, once he got an invitation to go to London for giving a lecture. Somehow JRD, reaches the CMD, the chairman, and the chairman actually invited him. Pense, I heard you are going to London. Did you prepare your text? No, sir. I do it all on the spot. You mean to say that you are going to speak to an international audience and you do not have a text? At least have you rehearsed your speech? No, sir. I will do it one day before, in the hotel room after I reach London. The JRD was like, your audience will hear you. I'm quoting you. But have you heard yourself? Keep a tape recorder in front of you every time you rehearse at home and play it back. Then you will know how the audience is going to hear you. JRD had no business about bothering about Pense and his talk in London. It is nothing to do with Tata or its business. But JRD is bothered about this reputation of this young employee. So point is, please understand, although we have today a professional life and a personal life, finally people will work for their friends. And unless if you are not a friend, people will not commit to you, irrespective of the monetary incentive. And one good way to invite commitment is to be bothered about their development beyond the professional sphere. And this is what JRD actually did. Pense did that. Actually, JRD, the story goes, lent him his own tape recorder and said, use this and return it to me. And Pense actually did exactly what the chairman said. He got a standing ovation, and he writes, I could literally see my chairman, smiling in that crowd. But this is what, it is about bothering about the development of the person beyond the office space, beyond an immediate requirement, beyond transaction, and towards transformation. This is a leadership challenge. Are we up for it? That is something that we need to ask for yourself. How do we do this? Again, it's an incentive. Give a gift voucher, ask staff to come up with a learning plan, and finally, employee of the month. So finally, my story is about this man, Rusi Modi. I'm sure all of us, will agree this man heralded to sort of transform the HR, human resources management as it is practiced in India today. In 1965, Rusi Modi, by the way, this man comes from a very privileged background. Very, very privileged. His father was one of the CMs of the United Provinces, if I recall my facts correct. But Rusi Modi was, as a director in 1965, he took charge of the ferromanganese plant, which was making a significant losses at that time. The first question he asked was, what are the grievances and what are the morale of the workers? Apparently, that's where record goes. Then, what did he do? He met all the 450 workers of this plant himself in batches of 50 people each at a director's bungalow. The workers had never seen a director's bungalow before. And imagine they're sitting with the director in his bungalow having cold drinks. The director is just one of them. Rusi Modi is famous for this, 12 eggs omelette on the shop floor of Tisco, the Tata Iron Steel Company in Jamshedpur. He is not at all, worried about status, privilege, hierarchy, or anything. Basically, his entire thing is, if there is inclusivity, workers will work for you. In this particular case, all the workers wanted is a pair of boots. And he ensured that all the 450 of them got this. No time, the profitability of the plant actually came bouncing back. Very simple thing. Boss gives you inclusivity, provides dignity, and raises your self-esteem. The end of the day, the professional and personal space are nothing but social spaces. And no one will work if they are put down, if they are sort of put down, repeatedly, harshly by anybody, whether the boss or the peer. Somehow we have to include people, lessen the power distance. As Mr. Sahu also said, we have to start listening to people. Transparency is important, and try to be nice. Mahatma Gandhi is one of the biggest managerial, guru that I always take. Can you believe it? That man persuaded a person to go to jail. If he can sell a negative experience and people can work with him, I'm sure most of us are selling only positive experiences. And it is not very difficult. All that we require is to look within and try to be nice to people. Now, how to achieve this? People do what they see. So the boss has to be a role model. Can you have food once a week with all the staff? Having food is a nice way of inclusivity. It actually lessens the power distance. Can you make a warm call once a month? We all do cold calls in sales. Can we make a warm call, a happy birthday, not a message, a happy birthday or a happy anniversary call? It works. No behavioral hierarchy despite structural hierarchy. Of course, hierarchy is necessary in organizations, but it should not be manifested as part of our behavior. So this is the framework, according to me, to build a very high performance team. Just to summarize, this one, activities we can do is a Friday conversations, great experiences at work and bad experiences at work. It can always happen. Visualize the customer, draw the happy customer, that's an important, not the product, the customer. Ensuring skilling and growth, ask for a skill plan. Staff of the month, ask for a peer voting photo or voucher. Practice inclusivity, have food together at least once, make a broadcast group in WhatsApp and wish in festivals, birthdays and anniversaries. I believe this can sort of try to help and build a very highly inclusive and highly directed and highly performing team. Thank you very much. I hope with this I end, and back to you, Professor Patnaik.
Thank you, Professor Pati. Now, your presentation was all about experiential learning, I believe. That is what we talked, and we also wanted an industry academia perspective on this particular subject. So, it was not at all boring, because it is always believed that visuals, they last long. They have a very lasting impression on our minds. So, the real life examples of, Taj Coral Reef and relating it to high performance teams, I believe we have related it pretty well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I would request Mr. Sanjeev Samal to please go ahead with his presentation. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik, for giving me the opportunity. Ajay sir, namaskar. Pati sir, namaskar. So you both have completed, and my topic had nothing left. No, for me, it's the last batsman. So
you are becoming so modest, Mr. Samal.
Thank you, sir. So, see, leadership challenges, here speak very well and narrated by Dr. Surya Prakash Pati. And for me, I will say that, my experience with you are not like, I have not captured anything else on the PPT form, because I thought that target group PV, like students. So, and that regard, I have prepared my own learning experience in industries.
Sir, we cannot see you. Can you please put on your video if that's possible?
Yeah. Is it okay?
No, we can only hear you, but I cannot see you.
Oh, you have some problem with them.
No problem. So you can then continue.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I'll share my experience with you. After completion of my master, I joined there in JK Paper. So for 5 years, I keep doing that performance appraisal. So the goal setting is MBO, management by objectives. So we are doing first is an organization goal, then we will move to functional goal, then departmental goal to individual goals. So in 6 months review, we have identified that KPI review and the TNI competency evaluation. So at that time, my observation so I am in a doer level. So, but there are level 1, level 2, level 3 people are working over there when they are feeling that appraisal and appraiser both are sitting. So I am asking the or you have to fill your TNI. So they said we have to fill TNI. So most of the appraiser is writing the communication skill is a improvement. Then I keep on writing the communication training. Then I have to provide the training. So I did not understand what exactly this communication skill is. So communication skill is what action should HR take to develop the individuals. So then I discussed with my HODs, he is there, Vice President HR. So sir, I getting confused on this, that how I will provide this kind of training to the individuals. So he has given me that you just go and check with the the appraiser. So what exactly he required to develop his subordinate. So when I talk with the general managers of engineering, I ask him that, sir, what exactly communication is you required from this assistant manager electrical. So he said, they care, just see that he has having good communication, but he has some problem to writing that, when he is drafting email, he has some problem. So I think, though I break it, that it is required communication skill in written. So same way I break the communication skill, that communication skill is like written communication skill, verbal communication skill, presentation skill, then external and internal communication skill. So now my actionable points as prepared, then what kind of training I will provide to the individuals. Now I'm very clear on that aspects. So I am telling this my experience because high performance team, the topic today is building high performance team, the leadership challenge. Now the building high performance team is that he should be clear what kind of job you want to do. So I have designed some of my experience when I prepared this topic. So I understand performance is equal to team potential minus outside interference. Suppose performance is equal to X and team potential is Y and minus Z. So performance will increase. If X is equal to Y minus Z, how can I maximize the value of Y, minimize the value of Z in order to achieve a greater X value? So what are the factors with my organization that have historically influenced team potential? What about outside interference? So now this team potential, what exactly these attributes of this team potential is? So what exactly potential? Potential is the latest quality or ability that may be developed and led to future success of individual. Now team potential content, the attributes is, first is purpose, which is rightly Ajay Sahu has explained. Dr. Pati also included so many things on these aspects. Purpose, that key goal of the department or individual in different level. Skill set, does the team have the needed to set a skill to get the job done? Then psychological safety. So psychological safety, a team with high psychological safety can take a risk without the fear of negative consequence. The team members can admit to errors and mistakes without fear of criticizing. A team should learn from past mistakes instead of hiding them. Now there is a physics, one formula is there. So we are always using the velocity, direction, acceleration and position. So this velocity, the velocity of the team, if I will compare with the here in the high performance team, so the velocity of the team describe how fast it is moving towards its goal. We measure velocity as the number of story points delivered each individuals. Now the acceleration is equal to velocity is equal to distance by time. Now the acceleration describe how well the team learns from past mistakes in order to increase future velocity. Regular retrospective means regular guiding to them, coaching them, mentoring them. So these are the things accelerate to them to do more. Now the direction describe where the team is headed in the contrast to where they should be heading. Now the position describes where the team stands today, how far behind or ahead they are. We use daily standards for quickly assess our current positions. Now this velocity, what I told, the velocity, direction, acceleration and position. Now I will tell that outside interference. Outside interference is like the changing goalpost. So moving target is considerably more difficult to hit than a static one. So changing team's goal halfway through the course can kill momentum. For that reason, so changing the goalpost is a key factor of outside interference. Now leadership changes. So leadership changes their trust on their leadership, acceptance. So these are the leadership challenges. Then organization challenges. Similar leadership changes in organization structure can have a direct or indirect impact on a team. Now the micromanagement, one of the factor of individual performance. Now the next, the attributes is inter-team interference. So there is already Dr. Patnaik, Dr. Prati has explained that silos of the functional silos, departmental silos, and individual silos makes them like trigger them back to perform. So in any organization, I have found that there are 4 categories of employees are working. One is drivers, or you can say pilots. One is critics. One is detached, and one is residents. So any organization success is required the drivers more to perform. So, sir, with this, what I have prepared for 10 minutes, right? Because Dr. Patnaik has given me that 48 alphabet and 7 words and 1 topic with 10 minutes time. So this is my, what I prepared in front of all of you. So thank you, Dr. Patnaik.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a very comprehensive yet very concise presentation. I really appreciate the way you have put forward your perspectives in terms of real life experiences, whatever you have gone through and whatever challenges that you faced, and then finally took forward with new ideas and new solutions. Thank you very much, sir. Now, we would take few questions from the participants. I can see also some questions. Now, first question is to Ajay sir, I believe. It is from Guru Prasad Das. He's asking, sir, being a leader, what are the real challenges to, getting your team to a high level of performance without any fail?
Okay, good question. Couple of things which are very critical for the leader to have the team to perform very highly. One is that I also mentioned during my presentation earlier, the clarity of goals and allocation of responsibilities with accountabilities to each team member. That becomes very critical. The second one is that from my experience, I can say that when you are leading a team, let's take for example, if you have 10 members working in your team, obviously the 10 members will be at a very different level of potential, their abilities, their performance, and their talent. But you need to manage the entire team together. So what a good leader does, a good leader always tries to leverage from the strength of the high performing team members. And the good leader focuses more on the team members who are lagging behind. So while the leader has to leverage from the strength of high performers, the leader also has to work on the team members who are not so high in terms of performance. The third one is, it will be a repetition of what I said earlier. If you want to build a high level of team, your communication with all the team members have to be always open. I mean, we have seen in our day-to-day lives also, if we have a difference of opinion with our parents or our spouses or our children, this gets sorted out when we discuss with them openly. It doesn't remain for long. And the last point, if you want to build your team to be highly performing, then you have to have an emotional connect with each one of them. Like Dr. Patnaik very clearly, Dr. Pati very clearly mentioned during his examples of Tata Group. Having worked in Tata Group myself for a very long time, I can only say that if you are able to connect with your team members, both in their minds and hearts, that is an emotional connect, that solves all the problems. Dr. Patnaik, that's all from my side.
Okay, sir. Thank you. There is a question to Sanjeev sir specifically from Amlan. He is asking, being a part of an organization like Zydus, which is playing an instrumental role towards developing and producing COVID vaccine, how do teams handle and collaborate amidst the high pressure levels of, both ensuring foolproof implementation of plans as well as the crushing time crunch here at play? So how crucial is balancing workload and resources here? What would be the thought process behind prioritizing tasks?
Okay, fine. Yes, we are producing. This is our no, again, our timeline was given by MD is March 17th is our timeline deadline timeline. For that reason, it's no the kind of things what we have hiring in our Zydus. Truly, they are very high performer because the scientists are working for 12 to 13 hours per day to making this happen, and this is reviewing every time by our chairman and managing director in every day at 4 o'clock. So the team is like this, they are having one, as a vice president level, also as a doctor. So there, the team was very politely, and we have an exclusive plant on there in our Ahmedabad location. And the thing is that in this COVID situation, it's a very great things I learned from Zydus, that our top management is sitting in instead of sitting in the corporate office, they regularly coming to the plant. They are like our vice president projects or vice president manufacturing or vice president vaccines. So everybody is coming over there. They are reflecting their like leadership, that we are here, as a time of challenges, as a team, we will support each other. So I proudly say in this last couple of months, from March onwards, that our attendance, our absenteeism is like hardly is 7 to 8% only. And when I talk to the individual people, what motivated you to come over there, they say the leadership, the plant head or not plant head or the vice president or business head, everybody come to the plant. They are talking to the individuals in the soft floor level. So that gives the spirit of the individuals that they are performing. Our production capacity is always on 100% from last couple of months, like 9 months. So from my side, it's end.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So today we have a lot of participants from outside the country, and one such question is from Mr. Vincent. He is asking, how can one develop good leadership qualities to attract others to follow the ideologies of one? Professor Pati, would you like to take this question? Professor Pati?
Yes. So this is thank you, Dr. Patnaik. This is a very interesting question, Vincent. Let me tell you, leadership, according to me, is a journey. It is never a title, never a position. And the sooner you sit on the throne, remember there's a danger of faster you fall down. That is as simple as that. And you not even cite so many examples, but last entire year, the India INC number of cases we have been seeing, and people we celebrated, once upon a time in our interviews in the institute. Unfortunately, they are all falling down as simple 9 pins, as simple as that. So leadership, according to me, very simply is first about self-development, and it is about 3 questions: who are you? What exactly do you want to achieve? And that is not an aspiration thing we tell the students. It's a very different question. I'll just come to that. And finally, what is the process of linking who are you and what you want to achieve? When I say what you want to achieve, unfortunately, many of us are designed by our education and by number of people we listen to, by our parents. What exactly do you want to do in your life? I just want to put this in a very different way. After you have reached the age of 60 or 70, when you look back, would you be proud? Would you be actually proud of your life? If you start looking historically backwards, maybe you will know how to even start moving forwards. So that is the first thing. What exactly the legacy that you want to leave behind in this life is a very, very important thing. And that is the first step for leadership. And that starts not at a certain age. It starts something around teenage. It requires a lot of social conditioning for helping a person understand that you have to lead a legacy. This is not a life to fritter away. That's the first thing. The second thing is about who you are. Who you are is a very difficult question, and that is where personality psychology and all those things are important. What is your strength? What are your competences? That's important. What is the one thing you would love learning? Unfortunately, in our country, we are destined towards engineering or medicine. And then of late, if these 2 things are not working, commerce, arts is towards the end of the hierarchy. So this is unfortunately a wrong way of looking at it. We have to ask the child to develop the competency and support the child. So leadership, doesn't start after age. It's a childhood affair. Okay, and I will try to again take the example of a Gandhi or a Hitler even, right? Who tried to develop themselves on their own and even try to change their personality. When a Gandhi started, fasting for to death sometimes, or even wearing khadi. Remember, he was just trying to change their personality, his personality, and it took a lot of time to actually become what he finally and to became. And the final one, Vincent, what you need to do is to understand which path you have to work and walk. So walking is very difficult because not everybody is going to follow you. That is why you become a leader when you have a set of followers. So you have to start finding those people who are your mirror images, and you can only help them, sell them an idea only if they trust you. And for becoming trustworthy, you have to develop yourself. This is like a triangle: what you walk, what you are, and what you want to leave behind. Maybe these three can help you become a leader. Still no guarantee. Thank you, Dr. Patnaik.
Thank you, Professor Pati. There is another question which is, I think, quite specific to Ajay sir. Mr. Santosh is asking that there are two aspects a person should have: a specific skill set, but he may not be able to match to the culture. Second is maybe low skill, but able to match the culture, which is better. And he also mentions that as per you, the second one is right. So he's asking why.
Yes. Yeah, so he has given the two examples. Someone who is highly capable, high performance level, but not able to adjust with the culture. The second one is who is very well acquainted with the, well adjusted to the culture. And of course, he's right. If I am given a chance to choose between the two, my preference will be second. But from the organization point of view, or as a leader, I want to choose both the people. I'll tell the reason. I will give preference to the second person over the first one because, say, in the long run, in the long term, your people who are consistently performing and highly adjusted to the culture will deliver better than the first category. The first category of people who are very high in terms of performance, but not they are low in terms of their leadership or generic competencies, they will do well in the short term, but they will not be able to do well in the long term. So the reason why I told that I want to retain both the people, while I will encourage the second person to continue to perform better in alignment with the culture, the first individual, I will try to work on him in terms of communicating with him what are the deficiencies, what are the issues he or she is facing in terms of adjustment with the culture, and what are the way forward. So I would like to work on both the people. It is not either or. As an organization, when we have people, we have to take the entire team together. That's all, Dr. Patnaik.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We'll just take one last question from Mr. Goodwin DR. He's asking that how the concept of design thinking can be chipped in during building high performance teams, and how a leader could make this concept instrumental in facing challenges. So Professor Pati or Mr. Sanjeev, whosoever wishes to, please go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Sanjeev.
Please, Dr.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think that Ajay sir is the right person to giving this answer.
So Professor Pati, you can also add in, and then finally maybe Ajay sir can add on.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So please understand, design thinking by very definition requires a prototype. And design thinking in India has become a very famous concept because of one person. It's called Vishal Sikka, who once he entered the Infosys. Not that design thinking was not there, but the very word actually became populated suddenly after he took over once upon a time as the CEO of Infosys. But design thinking has a long history, and one of the biggest iconic thing is your Steve Jobs, and that is one of the biggest iconic person I always think about. So Steve Jobs had 3 ideas towards design thinking. Of course, he never used the word design thinking, but his entire work is all about design thinking. The first one is hyper focus, not simple focus, hyper focus. So essentially, when Steve used to take his employees every year for a nice get together to plan out or chalk out for the next year, we'll ask people, tell me what all we can achieve. And his close group of employees will tell a number of ideas. He'll strike down everything, and only 1 or 2 ideas from the top will be the famous ones. Yeah. So that is the first thing. Hyper focus is important. Second, you have to build a prototype. So what the final product should actually look like. And remember, when we say final product should look like, prototype building requires the participation of the customer. It is not a simple market research that all of us are aware of. It is about really the participation of three important customers in the entire design, in the entire design of the product. That can bring about. And finally, it's about testing it. So remember, it is a very risky thing. Once we go to design thinking, it requires a lot of expenses in the beginning, but in the long term, the cost actually reduces. So leadership is very important because you have to keep the person focused on the job. That is, what is the job, and not get distracted, and also ensure that your team is somehow aligned and participative with the customer in designing the final product or service. So there, leader is the interface between who the user is and who the builder is. That is where the leadership actually comes around. Thank you. So I just said yours.
Great. So I'm going to share from the leadership perspective as far as design thinking is concerned. Of course, a couple of years back in our group, we wanted to design a leadership development framework for the group, all the group companies. And the first question we asked ourselves is that what is the ideal DNA of a leader in RPSG group? Or what are the leadership traits? What are the ideal leadership traits of RPSG group? And of course, we had workshops, we deliberated on various things, and we came up with about 17 leadership traits which are ideal for a RPSG leader. And of course, all 17 will not be applicable to all group companies, depending on which business sectors we are in. So out of 17, probably for one company, which is a very old company, very well set, process oriented, there are certain leadership traits like networking, innovation, building the organization. These are the key leadership DNA of that company. Whereas when we have a company which is a startup or which is a retail or FMCG company, the traits will be more on agility, high, say, technical skills. So this is somewhere related to design thinking. Of course, we didn't start keeping in mind that we need to do a design for the ideal leadership DNA of RPSG group. But the process which we followed by way of deliberation with people, workshops, looking at the values, the cultures of the companies, then we decided that these are the key traits of leadership in our group. So what I'm trying to say is that whether you want to build a design thinking framework to do certain things, or you want to do it in some other way without putting it as design thinking, it all depends on what do you want, what are the issues, and what are the solutions, and where you want to be. So if you ask these 3-4 simple questions, the answers will come gradually one by one, and you'll be able to build that. Whether you call it design thinking or something else, I'm not sure. Dr. Patnaik?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I would just like to take few minutes to mention my takeaway from the whole session, from the whole discussion that we had this afternoon. Now, I believe increased competition and focus on building innovation-led competencies within the organizations, they demand to a very large extent effective, efficient, and high-quality delivery. So, in that case, high-performing teams, the HPTs, are basically identified with businesses to drive this objective very efficiently. So these outperform all the expectations and achieve superior business results for a given organization. And it also marks an era of utmost importance in building organizational structures also. So these high performing teams, they do not appear overnight, obvious. So they need to be developed when the conditions are right, and with the combined actions of the senior leaders, the team members, and the team leaders. So, while concluding, I can say that there are some of the overarching principles which can basically guide all of us, who care about maximizing the team performance. And it includes specific, principles like integrity, mutual respect, be it clear communication, or, a brief exchange of feedback. Also, finally, the most important factor that I believe can contribute towards it is setting our eyes on the collective mission, which is very essential as per my knowledge. So, with these few words as takeaway, I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists for accepting our invitation and for sharing their valuable insights and wisdom on the topic. I also would like to thank all the participants for their support. Finally, I would like to thank my IT team for their support and cooperation. The feedback link has been shared in the chat box. Thank you again for joining us today, and I wish you all good health. We will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was great being here. Thanks a lot to everyone present here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik.
Thank you, sir.